simple use of line, color, and shape come together as we apply personal meaning and symbolism to these types of visual expression.
Drumatot is using the art of paper making to help veterans heal their emotional wounds.
According to the American Cancer Society, art therapy can be used as complementary therapy to help survivors express their emotions.
The expression of art has proven to be therapeutic. It has been highly regarded since before the modern age. But teaching people of all ages art is a noble profession. And in the case of Radhika Shah, owner and operator of Color My World, an art studio in Artesia, California, it's her biggest passion.
Welcome to Color My World Art Studio. We are a small private fine art studio based in Artesia, but we cater to a lot of neighboring cities. It's all the way from La Mirada to Cerritos, Cypress, Buena Park, and our youngest student is 3.5.
Oh, wow.
And our oldest is 99 plus.
Since you're running an art studio, I assume that one of your passions is art. So could you tell me how you got into art?
10th grade student who already loved art back home. Mm-hmm. And I was approached by moms of 2 boys and 2 of her friends. And they said, our boys are not so great at art, and back home in India you're used to doing a lot of good art regardless if you want to follow or pursue a career in art or not. They just approached me and said, could you teach my boys? And that was the beginning. And I never thought I'll have my own studio, but it so happened that word spreads around, and their friends were like, you should enroll my boys too and my girls too. And pretty soon, out of nowhere, the 2 boys became probably 250.
So did you pursue art in college?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So what was your exact major in college?
So my major was bachelor's in microbiology.
Oh.
And a minor in textile design and art.
Okay. So did you, coming from India, which is a more collectivist culture, did you see the transition, becoming a female executive, a little bit more challenging because the executive position is usually a patriarchal role?
Absolutely, because this is rewinding almost back to, I would say, 1992. Mm-hmm. And at that time, not very many families had, the female lead.
Yeah.
Not many people would encourage you to work as well. Mm-hmm. But since I assumed this was called a safe profession,
right,
like teaching, it's a noble profession.
Right.
So they did welcome me with open arms, but they would always say, what will you do after?
Yeah.
After, and then the sentence lingers off.
Uh-huh.
So I never had that question because my parents were very supportive.
That's good.
So they grew up in India, but they spent a good deal of time in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So I was one of the few lucky kids who was, allowed to do and follow my passion.
So then how was the transition from moving from India to here and then building your business in America?
That was a challenging part because over here, people are used to seeing, I would say, Asian teachers. Mm-hmm. Like if I had to enroll my daughter for piano lessons, I would have a lot of people recommend so-and-so in Cerritos or, in the neighborhood. Most of them were not Indian. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to find someone who is, not, I would say, stereotyped to be teaching a certain profession. And then when I started teaching over here, they would say, do you have other teachers as well?
Oh.
So they were probably looking for a seal of approval,
right?
Thinking that I might not be able to do my job well. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But then when I started showing them my portfolio and my credentials,
right,
and when they understand that I am a public school teacher as well, mm-hmm, they would accept me better.
Okay.
So that was my initial hurdle, to cover that part where I had to build trust, and make them trust me and my process with their child.
Do you remember a moment that you had where you broke through to a child and you helped them realize that art was a medium that they could express themselves in?
I think so. It was one of these art contests that a lot of students participate in, and it was one of my students was placed first, and that got me a lot of recognition because it was statewide. When my student won first place out of like 4,000 entries,
Wow.
that was a seal of approval.
Where do you see yourself like 10 years down the line? Do you think you might open another location for your art studio? Do you think you'll just continue where you're at? Are you happy with where you're at?
We have been looking into options about opening up in Orange County because a lot of my students have to drive down from Brea or Irvine, and they do have friends who do like a carpool.
Yeah.
And every person only has to drive once a month or maybe once in 2 months. But I understand how much of a challenge it is because my work is basically driven off of, a lot of how our feelings and our teaching is. It's with a lot of sense of purpose.
Right.
We don't focus just on art. We focus on the whole child.
Right.
And it's always a journey with us because we have students who are sometimes 4 or 3.5 or even 5. And when they start out, we see them grow through the years.
Right.
And to have somebody do this with a lot of passion for a long term, I would say I wish I can clone myself and a few of my teachers. I have a great staff, and I wish we could do that. There is a chance of opening another location, but I would only decide that based off of the quality of people I get. I don't want to feel that burnout before
Yes.
I don't want that. So it might be in the works, but it might not be. I'm not quite sure about that yet.
Okay. Well, I know that feeling of burnout is or coming close to it is common, especially when it's something you're passionate about, but it turns into a business.
Is business,
right.
exactly.
So you didn't set out for art to become a business.
Never, ever.
Okay.
My focus is on creativity, igniting a spark in that student who walks into that door and trusting him and her because when you see them grow, it's just amazing, and that's our fulfillment right there. So if I can do that in this location, which we have been doing so far, we have a ton of different things that we do. We do birthday parties, we do art classes, we do Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts when they come in to paint.
Yeah.
We have people just come in just for the fun of it, and they would have a holiday friend visiting, and they would just come in and they would say, "Oh, can we just come in and paint?" And that's the kind of place this is, where we nurture creativity a lot.
Have you found that this place has grown throughout the years as much as your students have grown?
Absolutely. When we started out over here, I was behind in a smaller. It was a smaller room with barely 2 of these tables.
Oh.
And we always had a wait list of 10 or 15 students. Waiting to cancel, and I'm like, maybe this is the time that I can go bigger.
Yeah.
And when we opened this in 2012, after 8 years of being in business, we never knew we would need a bigger place. I thought this was it. And after being here for another 7 years, this is our 7th year, a lot of people say, when are you going to buy this whole building? I'm like, no, I'm not even planning to do that. But they always feel the need, or we always have the need to kind of, accommodate more students.
Right.
But sometimes we don't have the room. And weekends are so popular because a lot of working parents can come from far, drop off their kids, but we can only accommodate so many.
Right.
So I like that. I like the fact that there's always a wait list for some days. And then in the mornings when we're still going to schools, we go to public schools and teach art in the mornings too.
Oh, okay.
In school art. So a lot of times they say, oh, do you have a location nearby? And we go, no, but you can come all the way down to Artesia. So I like that positivity and, the growing nature of this business. So at the same time, I do not want to make it very, I would say very, very commercial. And, expanding a lot of locations. Like, it's pretty easy to go ahead and say, okay, I can get a room, I can rent a place in a good busy strip mall and have people come in and do, paint nights and, drop in classes. But it becomes very commercial, and there's not much into the art form,
Right.
And we're not seeing that little fun aspect of this kid creating and, you know, being there to watch.
Yeah.
It's going to be my assistant or my other teacher. So I don't want to lose out on that either.
Right. So then, talking about the commercial aspect, how would you say your small business competes with the bigger, more commercial art studios?
Right. So we do have a lot of people who call us in. That's a great example I have right now, where we went into the school in Cyprus and then another school in Lakewood, and they were having a big box art tutoring academy come in and teach art. And they had the best of supplies with all the names branded. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, you know, the pencil has your name,
Yeah.
and your crayon box has your name. We try not to focus on all that, but we do go in, and instead of cramping in 3 to 4 classes in a multi-purpose room and showing them an awesome video about, you know, Claude Monet or Leonardo da Vinci or Frida Kahlo, what we do is we come down to the brass tacks. We show them a lot of art done by Frida Kahlo with our style.
Oh.
We focus on individual classes at a time. We go in and we teach one class at a time for 50 minutes. We have a one-on-one with this whole classroom with a lot of Q&As. We ask them lots of questions. We ask them, how does this make you feel when you look at an art project by Monet, or when you look at the water lilies, or when you look at the Starry Night? What happens to you? How does it ignite your thinking and your creativity? How would you make it different? After they understand it, we ask the students, now, if I were to give you a pen and paper and say, you make your version of Starry Night, they can blend in what they've seen, their own thoughts and ideas, and what they've read about it in the past, what they've heard about, and what they've probably discussed with their parents at some point in time, or even, you know, gone to a library.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of ideas in that one point that culminates into this awesome project that probably the big box academies will not be teaching them.
Exactly.
Because they're in and out in like 15 minutes, and they come back after a few weeks and teach them a lesson. I think you lose out on a lot when you go back and teach. We do it then and there in that hour, and then we see the whole process from beginning to end, and all the teachers in the school tell us, this is not how I would have done it. I'm so glad that you're teaching it this way. And
so do you think through this studio you've also seen teaching morph into one of your passions?
absolutely.
Now that this has become a business of yours, what is something that you didn't expect would arise on the corporate or the business side of this company that now you have to deal with in regards to your passion?
Numbers.
Oh.
So, you know, when you're artistic or you're right-brained or left-brained, so that's the part that I get to, you know, I kind of push around, push back. And somewhere along the line, I have my partner, managing partner, to deal with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think you've found a good dynamic between your employees and all your teaching assistants, in that they idolize the values that you have and like focusing on individualism, on the student and the growth?
Yes, one of the core, I would say, requisites for me hiring a person would be their passion. So I have made exceptions where they don't have a major in arts. They probably have a minor, but their passion is art.
Right.
The second most important thing I would love for them to have, and I've always selected my teachers based off of that, is patience. Because I firmly believe in the fact that if there's this style that the student cannot learn with, there's 100 other styles that we can come up with to make them understand that same concept.
Right.
Because, like I said, if I had a great math teacher, I probably would love numbers as well.
Looking at all of your success right now, what would you tell the Radhika Shah that was just starting out, moving over to America and about to start Color My World? What advice would you give her that you've learned along the way?
So when I was going to open in a big scale, I had a lot of people tell me, don't make that mistake.
Oh.
They said, who is going to come to an Indian art teacher to learn art? Because there's so many good teachers over here in the neighborhood who are probably not based off of Indian descent. And they did put in, maybe that was probably something very truthful that they were telling me, but they probably don't know my passion. They probably didn't know me.
Right.
And that's not their fault. They were just probably throwing in, things to, probably make me understand how the world works. And they were trying to make me understand how if they had to send a child, they would probably check out different places and they might go with the one that they like the best. And I might not be the one. But then, since they didn't see the artistic side of me,
Right.
which I rarely show to people, because once I start, it's hard for me to stop.
Yeah.
And maybe they were just probably making me understand how, it's going to be probably a difficult path. But at the same time, I knew I was so grounded in that I never had to think twice. That I would tell the Radhika Shah from years ago that don't wait, do it sooner.
Oh.
It's okay if people are doubting you. You don't have to prove to them. You just keep following your passion and your perfection for your passionate venture, and then success just follows.
To all the aspiring female business professionals listening, do you have any advice for them?
Yes, I do, because a lot of times they doubt themselves. So number one, never doubt yourself. If you are doing it, do it the best. Number two, always try to create that sweet spot where you can strike a balance, because it's no point in running after one thing or the other thing and trying to spread yourself too thin.
Right.
You want to make sure that you probably strike a balance, because it's the best way to achieve success. You want to make sure you're giving a lot of attention to your home front,
Right.
yourself, and your passion. And then when you know what works best, it's very easy to strike that balance. And it takes time. But once you know that, that's it.
You're there.
You're there.
Everyone should visit Color My World in Artesia, California, and tell Radhika that FemExec sent you. Thank you.